I just appreciate, I don't know, I just appreciate all the things you've been sharing, everyone. I have Chris in my background. And that's that's my favorite picture of Chris, where we were at a 4th of July party at one of his apartments in Providence. That's him with a glow stick. You know, it's just the magic was always there. You know, he spoke and thought in fluent philosophy. so you know, I sort of want to add, you know, so someone was mentioning Charles was mentioning how many departments he could have been hired in, and what was wonderful for me, because I'm in a small department, was that Chris and I connected right away. I mean, that's its own story, but that for years, I mean, up till up until classes came to an end in person, with the pandemic, I would be walking in the hall and there would be Chris, and we'd be like, oh, and I'd be like, oh, I'm teaching Homer today in my ancient Greek philosophy class, and he'd come in, and like we would do that all the time. We would like just visit each other's classes. And I think what was extraordinary was simply that he could just sit down and become a student and a interlocutor, no problem. And, I had that invitation to his classes. So I would come in and talk about, I work in Plato, and, I know I've even stopped in Victor's classes early on, but Chris and I just, had a sort of sense that the university happens wherever it happens. It's kind of stepped right in. And, his theme of, boundary crossing extended into every part of his life. It wasn't a theory. He was a practitioner of the theories that he worked on in his, his professional scholarship. So there was a way in which disciplinary boundaries were exactly where he crossed very, very gracefully. This was the magic, and it was a kind of combination of ability and humility in this really wonderful balance. Because, one of the things being, a professional philosopher at this, for this long too, is that everybody thinks they can do philosophy. I'm using, like, whether it's on the internet or someone from, chemistry or whatever, everyone has an opinion that what we do isn't actually professional at all. Chris had a respect of expertise for everyone he encountered. I never had a conversation with him in which we weren't interrogating with a mutual respect about the kinds of information we could share. And so there was never a sense of, like, I think people understood how brilliant he was, but how down to earth and real. But it was very specific. I think he encountered, especially as a comp lit person with unbelievable, like barely believable language skills, I think he recognized that he desired respect and earned it and gave it. Like that, it was very, very, there was very precise. He never sort of questioned my integrity as a scholar. He always wanted to get my opinion so I would be able to see and to bounce his ideas off. And for that, it was just a pleasure to share ideas with him. I mean, we would walk through the streets of Providence, when our lives intersected and our friendship was developed off campus, and in our personal lives, we just, would eat, a dinner out with Chris. I'd be getting home at 2 a.m. And we wouldn't be like, we'd go for a drink and get drunk on ideas. It was fabulous. You really just didn't need to do anything but sit, listen, and talk, share, and the associative memory he has is very hard to keep up with Chris sometimes in conversation, because there's references. He's very meta in person. Like, once again, the theory of like, I do metafiction too, so that we had all these kind of interesting scholarly intersections, but it was like living the meta, and being in a David Foster Wallace novel or something. It was crazy good. And it was just another level of interaction, unique. I can't ever say like, oh, that's like something else, because I've never met anyone like Chris. We in the first, because people were also talking about when they first met him. And I remember I was at UMD maybe 2 years already, and I was working on the religious studies program. I had this unbridled enthusiasm at that time, and he was coming out of the dean's. We met in the dean's office, and he had this suit on. He looked so great. I noticed it right away, but he also exuded this energy and this positivity. And I was running into the dean's office to give good news, because I just had, like, I know everyone goes to the dean with problems. So I was like, oh my God, I have the best news ever. I can't remember what it was, but it was like some success or whatever. And I was running into the dean's office, and he was just leaving his meeting with the dean, and boom, like that, like brush fire. And, it's so interesting because, I was, because I met him and I was like, oh, like in my mind, I'm like, they're going to hire him. I know it. Like, I didn't even know this person really, but I was like, I just know it. And there, now I know the story, thanks to this memorial. I know that there was like so much at stake in his hire, and there was 2 hires. That's just a astonishing success in academia, getting 2 hires out of 1 search. Wow. Whoa. And for me, it was meeting a very like-minded person who was totally different, but shared enough that this was a productive exchange between 2 people who Chris, I think, got me in a way that I don't think a lot of other faculty understand me, and help me understand myself. So Chris gave a lot of gifts, and one of them was, just this, I don't know, he like wait, like, this is the magic wand, and he waved his magic glow stick, and told you to be yourself, to just like, don't do these other things that are sorrow building in your career. Write the paper you always wanted to write. Write it now. Like, there's no other time. And it was like this idea philosophically pursuit of presence. So, this presence in the classroom, teach the course you want to teach, how you want to teach it. And, I ended up, learning so much with his support about what possibilities I could pursue. I taught a philosophy of time class in which I brought a giant roll of paper, and I had rolled it out on the floor, and everyone got off of their desk and started like doing their notes and writing and making pictures of like on this massive piece of paper on the floor. It was awesome and unforgettable. And it's stuff like that that Chris was really helping me with, understanding like, don't stay in the boundaries that have been given. Those are artificial, and whatever purposes they serve, they're there, but they're not absolute. And to treat them as written on tablets of jade is like for him, it was like a criminal act. Like there are these categories, mess with them and move around, travel through them, bring what you find in these other areas to and across these boundaries, and vice versa, right? There's this exchange, this constant translation of between everything. And he gave me that. He gave me that gift. And, I can't really, since we went back into face-to-face classes, I don't know about a lot of you, but it's like, it's an emptier hallway that less filled with surprises. And I don't know what to do about it sometimes. I miss him so much. I really do. And I don't know what to do in this morning, except maybe continue a legacy of crossing boundaries and making theory practice, right? And becoming and doing the things that I believe in a very firm and secure way, right? To take the risks that he was just like, I didn't even think he thought of it as risky. It's like, he has to do the thing that he sees. But as a more risk averse person, I benefited at profound level from the inspiration that he gave us and gave me personally. I don't think the streets of Providence will ever be the same because we're not yelling. We're not yelling about Marcuse, Foucault across. There's you know it. But okay, so for people who are in UMass Dartmouth, I do keep, Chris and I have a flash mob disco party set up. So that would be, because you can actually just pick a room through the Reserve It system and just like call it a meeting and invite students or whatever you want, because you can actually do that. If you like, people don't realize you can just do things like reserve a room, call in, and so we picked like a really quiet room at like late at night or towards the evening and just hang disco balls and light machines. So those remain in my office. So if anyone has this, and now we're back on campus, anyone wants to call a flash mob disco party, I am ready. And I couldn't imagine a better thing to do in honor of Chris as a regular thing. So I'm here forever. And come get me. Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Those are great thoughts and recollections and suggestions. We have Irene or Irene would like to share some stories too.
Yes, I would like. I look at Humberto da Silva's background, and it matches exactly what I was saying here in the chat. Oh, Professor Larkosh had this opportunity to help Cape Verdean Americans and Azorian Americans to reflect critically about their background, their culture, but from here and now, as he enjoyed very much saying. And I think that's a legacy for the future, that and the responsibility that he left for us. We have that responsibility because UMass Dartmouth, right, is located in a community with so many descendants of the Lusophone countries. And he felt that responsibility of working with the students, right? And I hope that we all can help carry on his mission. I was his first PhD. We had terrible arguments, but I would always stop, think, and go back. And he would let me come in. So I also would like to bring here how important he felt the role of the public intellectual. We kept talking about this in the last few years, and that's another legacy. So there is so much future. There is a future for Chris in all of us, and we have that responsibility because we live the physical world, but the spiritual stays. And I hope that we all can carry on. That's what I wanted to say. As
Great, it's a great way to put it. Right. Somebody else, like Heather, are you there? Would you like to share some thoughts? Or Elise, would you read it?
Oh, certainly.
Among
She
us.
said, I also remember a time when Christopher came to stay at my apartment in New York City for 2 weeks while I was away. And afterwards, he said that he had noticed all the books I had on my shelf, like The Drama of the Gifted Child and others about growing up misunderstood. And he said, I'm sorry, I didn't know this about you. I'm so sorry for your pain. And he and I grew up together. And just in the way that only Chris can, he acknowledged an unfinished mourning in me. And the next day, I went and donated all those books because I was ready to move on to living in the present and had done mourning. Chris had that ability. And I remember that Heather also wrote on the website, she sent in an amazing submission to the website about how Chris, more than anyone, or as much as anyone on the planet, held the keys to her childhood heart. Just destroyed me because I feel the same. And I knew Heather during that time as well. So, and a few other people who are here today as well. So it's just, these are the people that, we help make each other, really. And I could not be more grateful for all of it.
Could I also read the other comment that Heather posted? Because I feel like there might be a message from Chris to us embedded in that message. Heather wrote, Alexandra, your sharing about your mother reminds me of how much Chris helped me with grieving for my own mother. He was not afraid to talk about emotional things and told me once, your mother, like mine, taught you things you may not know, but that will save your life. He helped me understand that death is not an end, but also a new beginning and a continuance, and tried to always pass that way of living with death and love as the only way to live fully. It makes me think we could reflect on, the things that Chris taught us that will help us to endure now.
Different facets of conversations that I had with him over decades hit me every day. And yet at the same time, I have to say, for all of his achievement in the realm of language study and translation studies and all of that, he could have easily become a professional musician as well. And I say that as not only a musician, but as a music educator. He could have gone in that direction. He had those skills, he had that discipline, and he had that love for this universal language that the entire globe shares. He had that in spades. And I just have a couple of like different little facets of memories that were musical, if I may, Dario. He bought tickets for us to see Ben Folds, the pianist and singer-songwriter in the rock genre. But like oddly, Ben Folds, you know, is now gotten to the point where he's playing Boston Symphony Hall. So we went there, and Ben Folds tends to bring in a huge amount of audience participation. He divided up the right balcony, the left balcony, the right floor and the left floor, and he taught each section 4 different backing vocal parts. And he played one of his more noted songs, and he had the entire hall singing backup for him. And I just can't tell you, I'm sure you can imagine the gusto with which Chris was singing. I mean, it was just really a peak moment for me, I have to say. When I was teaching high school music and had small jazz ensembles of high school kids, and we went to the Berkeley High School Jazz Festival, he was living in Providence. He came up for the day. He came and watched my bands perform, not just like, you know, in the back reading a book and kind of half listening. He was there and really just in the moment with my students, and had such amazing things to say and such words of encouragement for these 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids. Just blew my mind. And then more recently, he and I went to WGBH TV studios in Alston for a show called Sing That Thing, which is it was a singing contest for small choral groups or a cappella groups. And for him, yes, it was fun to go and we had a great time, but for him, it was sort of a pilgrimage as well, because I think that WGBH and public television were very important to him as a kid on Martha's Vineyard, and you know, had really been an outlet for him. So it was truly sort of a privilege to see him in that setting. We were walking with my husband, Rob, who was also a dear friend of Chris's and who was constantly like, Chris would just put him in stitches because they just had so many shared cultural ideas just from their childhood. We're walking through MIT, going to a movie at the Kendall Square Cinema. And he just started singing Here Comes the Rain Again by the Eurythmics, but he had changed the lyrics. And he's like, here come the brains again, braining like the brains at MIT, you know, just like singing out loud so that anyone within a block could hear. And I mean, and he had people singing along with him. It was absolutely, I mean, this was a common occurrence, this kind of thing. And one more musical thing, what turned out to be the last time that I saw Chris was October of 2020, the end of October, just down in Providence visiting. And I had just unearthed some old scripts from when we were in children's musical theater together. And this was actually for a church pageant that we had been in together in the Tisbury Church, or the Vineyard Haven Church, Grace Church stories. And this one was about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, which was like minor stories from the Bible. I had dug up this script and I had studied the lyrics, and I did not even remember whether or not he had been in this production with me, because my memory was like 1/8 the size of his, maybe 1/10, you know?
Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego lived in Judah
a long time ago. They had funny names, but it worked out okay because they knew what was right and they knew what to say.
This is the story that you ought to know about Shadrach.
What kind of name is that?
Meshach. Who has a name like that? Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego.
Oh, okay, so it is genetic. You've got it too, Dan. That's amazing. So I just started singing it. I had studied the lyrics because I had the script. He remembered every word and was singing not only every word, but he was singing harmony as I sang the melody. As we walked down the street in East Providence, I was floored. It had been 40 plus years since he had seen those words or heard them. You know, a photographic memory it doesn't even go far enough to be able to say the kind of memory, the kind of retention of like every cultural experience he'd ever had from the time he was 11, 12 years old. And I'm sure far before that, Dan, but I didn't know him until that time. I just about collapsed on the sidewalk. I could not believe it. So,
one little coda to your children's theater's PBS story. One time, Mary Kane, who's the director of the children's theater, she did the production of the Treehouse. She did it off island, and we were on PBS. We were on children doing this play on PBS. Well, while we were doing it, Chris found the set of Major Mud. He totally trashed the set of Major Mud. Just a little aside, mischievous Chris when he was little.
Yeah, when we visited Pittsburgh in 2018, he was there for a conference, and I decided to go along because I have other friends there, and he and I got to go to the set of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, which is now at the Heinz History Center. And it was like another pilgrimage, and just the kindness that Mr. Rogers has always espoused. I just felt that living on in Chris. I had always known that about him, but being there on that set with him, I'm like, just full circle moment, so.
This is so cool, isn't it? All these angles, all these sides to one's personality, to one's contribution to this world, and his effects on other people and culture at large, right? This is great. Anybody else would like to join in? I do want to say one thing about his teaching that I appreciated as chair or as colleague, right, in the department. He loved cooking for his students. It's a lot of food that he would bring to the classroom every semester. But he did it with such enthusiasm, introducing them to dishes, to treats that they had never seen before, from the Portuguese-speaking world. Back to the hiring experience, hiring Chris. I remember that, okay, so the semester would start September 1st, September 2nd, whatever, the first Monday of the month. And he had been offered a position. He had accepted the position. And I think ever since receiving the letter, he wouldn't stop going to UMass Dartmouth. It's like on a daily basis, there he was. So this was like July, August. So in August, I think I talked to Victor about it. Victor, Chris is not officially working for UMass Dartmouth, but he has been here every day, and his presence is so strong that I have a feeling he's been working here for 10 years. With all his plans and ideas, and his enthusiasm and his energy. Oh my God. It's just been a month and a half, and feels like 10 years. But that show, that's the way he was, right? This attachment to his to his liking of the world, an integral connection with pleasure out of being alive and learning and sharing. I think that's how we connected the most, he and I. I do not have that much zest, that much enthusiasm, but I might have something above average. Those of you who know me, right? Above average.
I think you do, Dario, definitely.
But with him, I felt so free, so entirely free to be myself, because there was somebody else who was a lot more than me, and he made me feel good.
Chris loved his job when he first started working at UMass. He was very excited, which probably explains why he was there all the time. And he always said how academically he really felt like he found his home. The UMass Dartmouth, the department he was with, he really felt like he found a home.
That's so great. That's so great. One of his students, another student, because Irene was his student too. Dustin, would you like to talk?
So yes, I'm Dustin DuPont. I graduated from UMass Dartmouth with a bachelor's in Portuguese, and then also with an MAT from UMass Dartmouth. And I'll be honest with you, like right now in this Zoom call, just based on my personality, it's a little intimidating to just be, surrounded by all of you academic scholars, because I by no means, consider myself to be one. But then at the same time, the reason why I can step away from those feelings right now is because of thinking about the way Professor Larkosh always made me, and I feel like the other students in his classes feel. He always had that, message in his teaching of equality and of love. And a lot of you have touched upon that. And I try to bring that into my own classes as a teacher. I've been teaching Portuguese and Spanish at a high school now for 13 years. And like that power that he had over me is one of the things that I really try to include as I teach. But yeah, it's funny because the very first class I had with Professor Larkosh was actually his first semester teaching there. It was fall of 2007, and it was in the textile building. So those of you familiar with the textile building know that it's kind of hard to find. So here we are, first day of the class, and the professor was nowhere to be found. He actually showed up late, and I want to say it was like a good 10 minutes late, and he apologized. He told us how he honestly could not find the building at all. But that class was Portuguese American literature, and it was an amazing class to take with him. And I loved how for the end of the semester project, he left it very open-ended. We worked in these groups, and for my group, he kind of, ran through some ideas with the entire class, but my group did this Fado rap music video, and he loved it. He absolutely loved it, praised it. He kept a copy of it and said he would show it, to classes in the future. And immediately, I knew I wanted to take more courses with him because this was a 200 level course. So then I started to take my 300 level courses, and I took the translation course with him. It was theory and practice. And I did another project that I was really able to be creative with. And he was totally so into the idea. I had told him about a recent visit to the Azores and how my cousin had come back from Madeira. And in Madeira, they have the popular drink poncha. And I got to try poncha because he, was able to bring back some bottles to San Miguel. And I was like, wow, this stuff is great. I got to see, can I get this in the United States? And surely enough, I was not able to. It wasn't sold in the United States. And what I did for my project in that Portuguese 305 class with Professor Larkosh was, from the beginning of the semester, I want to say, until the end, I tried to find a way to make it possible to get them to start bringing this drink into the United States. And that's what I did. I faxed the manufacturer. I was in contact with them many times throughout the semester. It came down to something regarding the label being approved. But at the end of the day, the drink is now the actual bottle, the same exact bottle that I got to try when I was in the Azores, has since been approved, and it is here. in the United States. And it's crazy because it all started with an idea I came up with, from Professor Larkosh's class. And that's what I mean. Like, it was just these opportunities, such memorable things that I can't explain well enough. I ended up taking 3 classes with him as an undergrad, the third of which was a seminar. So that was my senior year. And I remember we actually, and this is how he was, we got to go outside to read and discuss Ujluziyadish. So I thought that was cool. Like, he always had these different things that I don't feel this way in other classes. I really don't. So, like I said, 3 classes with him that I was very fortunate to take as an undergrad. And then when I was doing my master's, I took 2 courses with him, the second of which was literary and cultural analysis. And yeah, exactly what it says there. We were in class and we're hearing helicopters and police cars. And he's like, you know what, guys? I can't take this. We need to have these discussions. Nobody's going to stop us. So he took us across Ring Road, that there's that little pond there and there's the bench. And there we are. I'm the one sitting all the way to the right, acting silly as I usually would. That's one of the things that I think he appreciated and really told me in his own ways, like many of you have said, to be yourself. Always just embrace who you are and love life. And it means a lot to me. And I think about that a lot because, I've been through my own struggles with life. So he left just such a mark on me. I talk about him with my students all the time. And even after, we kept in contact for a little bit, even after graduating with my master's, he sent me a invite to, this was in March of 2019, negotiating place and ethnic experience. And before we went to the event, which was, I believe, at the library, he wanted me to join his class and bring in food. So that's what we did. But beforehand, he had us all via email talk about what we would bring in for food. And me, it was Marcella. So I brought in the Marcella, but he made sure, he's like, Dustin, if you're going to bring in Marcella, you have to do it with an anaj. So that's what I did. And yeah, it was these kinds of things that they stick out so much. And I loved the opportunity today to just join you in this, in this memory of him, because he deserves it. He deserves this and more. He really does. And again, thank you for letting me speak, letting me share. Thank you.
That's wonderful memories from a student's perspective. And we could have so many more from other students, including, I'm thinking of Logan Duarte, the impact of Chris's initiatives on the students. He brought students to the Azores, twice at least, to India, to Canada, and those were moving experiences in the lives of those students. Logan Duarte, for example, talks about on an interview that was videotaped, and we have a lot of material from that occasion. But anyway, he talks about how Logan connected with the Portuguese culture and the Portuguese language and the memories of his grandfather only through, not until that trip to the Azores that turned the young man's life around and not only improved that young man's Portuguese, to a level that he never thought he could, to the point that he decided to have Portuguese as his career, and now he's thriving as a high school teacher, and now in the academic world. He has just gotten this scholarship to Brazil, to Santa Catarina. Is going to be his first time in Brazil, so he's going to take a huge step toward connecting the cultures of the Azores in Portugal and Brazil. But it's just, it's beautiful to see how Chris would do all he could to offer what was not offered to students generally, because of his love for helping, his love for learning, his love for inviting other people into his world that knew no limits. His world was an open-ended set of discoveries that we are all sharing here in so many ways. Thanks, Dustin.
Dario, I think the thing that you said in the original tribute that you wrote on behalf of the department, which we then made into that short video with the music, where you speak about, all of his work and all of his, accomplishments. But the word that rings, I think, after you listen to that video is, or the phrase, boundless generosity. It really hit very hard. I mean,
would you like to share that? That might be for the text, but also for the images, because that's a great collection too of images of Chris's many sides and soul.
Sure. One moment.
Yeah, it's lovely. That's a lovely presentation.
I think so too.
Dear family and friends of Chris Larkosh, we, faculty, staff, and students of UMass Dartmouth Department of Portuguese, would like to express our deepest sympathy in these most difficult times. We highly appreciated, respected, and loved Chris for all he did for us in various capacities as mentor, colleague, and friend. He had a huge heart, and we'll never forget him. We send you all our warmest wishes for strength in light of this enormous loss for you, for us, and for other thousands of people whose lives have been touched and transformed by his wholehearted dedication, his rare intelligence, and his boundless generosity.
Thanks for sharing these.
You're most welcome. I can't think of anything that would have been more therapeutic for me, in the immediate wake of his death, but to put together any angle, any of the many angles of the amazing photographs that people have sent, the amazing just recounting of stories that people wrote. I just can't tell you. I mean, just very difficult to sort of wade through it, but at the same time, just such a privilege and just oceans of tears. But I wouldn't trade 1 second of it.
Thanks. Anybody else would like to add anything? We've been here for almost 2 hours. Isn't it amazing? Yeah.
I just wanted to say too that I think my brother would be honored by such a wonderful group of people joining over a year after his death. I hope we can do it again because it really was wonderful to hear from people, and I just want to say, as his brother, I know he would be honored, and I know he's looking down right now with a big smile.
The website is truly, I think, best thought of as a living document. Please send in more. It gets quite a bit of traffic. I'm able to look at the numbers. So please, if you have other remembrances, please send them to there's a contact page there. So just callmechris.net is all you need to know.
You've done an amazing job there, Elise. Amazing, and it's it's a world to explore. It definitely is. And we all, right, can contribute anytime, right? More, you guys are more than welcome to be part of it. Thank you all for joining and spending time in stories. Please don't leave. If you still have a story to share, we would love to hear anytime now. Otherwise, keep our hopes up, right? And in loving memory of Chris.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody.